Sometimes when life gets quiet, you think God is silent, but silence is often the first sign that something divine is unfolding. When things seem still, when it feels like nothing is moving, that is often the moment the ground beneath your spirit is shifting. It doesn't shake the earth, it stirs the soul. That gentle stirring, that holy discomfort is a sign. You think help comes only when you see it, but the greatest help is the kind that reaches you in the invisible, the kind that builds you from within before blessing you from without. That's the first signing, discomfort. You feel unsettled, not because you're lost, but because you're being called. You feel a gentle push, a quiet nudge, and everything in your world begins to stretch. You thought it was chaos, but it was construction. That divine unease is a holy renovation, God making room for more. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. That's the loop. Preparation always looks like disruption. The bigger the blessing, the deeper the digging. So if you feel like things are falling apart, maybe they're falling together. That is how God begins. Not with noise, but with nudges. Not with lightning, but with longing. And you've felt this before. This isn't your first awakening. There was a time before when you didn't know how it would work out. And yet somehow, grace carried you. It didn't shout, it whispered. It didn't shove, it shifted. And here you are again, learning once more that the discomfort is not your enemy. It's your alignment. You are being aligned with your divine path, and the tightness you feel is the stretching of your spiritual skin. That's the first sign that God is helping you. You're growing. But growing doesn't always feel like glory. Sometimes it feels like grief, because you're letting go of what no longer fits. And that's the second sign, release. Things begin to fall away. People, habits, situations, identities. You don't understand it at first. You think you're losing, but really, you're clearing. You're shedding the weight that your next level can't carry. And though it feels like loss, it's sacred subtraction. God never removes without reason. Every release is a rescue. Every goodbye is a gateway. You've outgrown the old, and your spirit knows it. And you know it too, deep down. That's the connection point. That deep knowing, that gentle clarity. It's not coming from your logic. It's coming from your spirit. It's the whisper that says, let it go. You're safe now. You're supported. You're being lifted. That's the voice of the divine. That's the direction you've been praying for, even if you didn't realize it. And when the releasing starts, don't fight it. Bless it. Thank the people who couldn't stay. Thank the doors that didn't open. Thank the moments that stretched you, because they made you lighter, freer, readier. That's the loop. Every release clears the space for revelation. And what's coming next will not fit in the life you've outgrown. You've made space now, and here comes the third sign, redirection. You thought you were going one way, and suddenly the path turns. The plan shifts. What you expected dissolves. You didn't ask for a new direction, but here it is. And even though it feels inconvenient, uncertain, maybe even terrifying, you know in your soul that this detour is divine. God is not rerouting you to confuse you. He's rerouting you to protect you. Because the route you wanted may have been good, but the one He's guiding you to is greater. And if you trust that, if you lean into it instead of resisting, you will see miracles in motion. That's the beauty of divine redirection. It never leaves you where you started, and it never takes you somewhere you don't belong. It's love disguised as change. It's guidance dressed up as disappointment. And the only way to walk it is by faith, not by sight, not by approval, not by comfort, but by knowing. That's the fourth sign, clarity without evidence. You begin to feel clear inside, even when nothing outside has changed. The numbers don't line up, the facts don't support it, but your spirit is certain, and that certainty is the sign. That peace is the proof. You're not making decisions from fear anymore. You're moving from trust. You're not reacting. You're responding to the inner voice that says, this is your path. And as you begin to walk it, the fifth sign appears, so unexpected provision. Things start showing up. People, resources, opportunities. And you didn't earn them the way the world taught you to. You didn't force them. You aligned with them. You trusted, and they arrived. Because God doesn't bless your effort. He blesses your alignment. And when you're aligned, provision flows. Not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned. And that's the loop. You were never lacking. You were only misaligned. The supply was always there. You just couldn't see it while you were looking through the lens of fear. Now, fear is fading. Now, you're walking in faith. Now you're expecting provision, and it's meeting you halfway. That's sign 6, ease. Not because life is suddenly easy, but because your energy has shifted. You're no longer striving. You're flowing. You're no longer forcing. You're receiving. You're no longer begging. You're believing. And in that ease, miracles happen. Doors open, burdens lift, timing aligns, and it's not coincidence. It's confirmation. It's the unfolding of everything you've been prepared for. And then, the seventh sign appears: joy. Unshakable, unreasonable, radiant joy. The kind of joy that makes no sense. The kind that rises up from within you when nothing external has changed. That's the divine signature. That's the smile of God in your soul. That's how you know you're being helped. Because joy becomes your home again. Not the fake kind. Not the fleeting kind. The deep kind. The still kind. The kind that says, I trust the process. The kind that whispers, I know I'm held. The kind that anchors you when the waves rise. That joy is your compass. That joy is your confirmation. And now, dear soul, here is your call to action. Return. Return to these signs. Return to the truth. Return to the knowing that you are not alone. You are not abandoned. You are not behind. You're being guided. You are being helped. And the help is holy. The help is hidden. The help is happening right now, even here. So walk forward in faith. Lift your head. Open your heart. And when it gets quiet again, don't assume God is gone. Assume He's near. Because silence is not absence. It's alignment. And you, dear one, are right on time. There comes a moment, not always loud, not always noticed, when you suddenly feel different. Not because life outside you has changed, but because something inside you has shifted. That moment, that subtle inner pivot, is a sign. God is helping you, not by fixing the outer world, but by transforming your inner one. That quiet courage you now feel, even in the face of uncertainty, is not yours alone. It is borrowed strength from the divine. You are being carried. And this is the loop so many forget. God helps you first within, so that the without can follow. He does not change your life by rearranging the scenery. He changes so you see it all differently. And the moment you see differently, you live differently. That is help. That is guidance. That is grace. You begin to recognize that fear has lost its voice. The fear that used to shout has become a whisper. The anxiety that used to paralyze now passes like a cloud. That's not coincidence. That's transformation. That's your second birth. You are becoming the version of yourself that can carry the life you've prayed for. Because God does not give beyond your ability to hold. He grows you so that when the blessing comes, it will not break you. And maybe that's what He's been doing all along. Not punishing, not delaying, but strengthening your spiritual hands. And here's the connection pointing. You are no longer who you were. And because of that, what once felt impossible now feels inevitable. That's a sign. When the mountain no longer intimidates you, when the delay no longer discourages you, when the challenge no longer disorients you, God is helping you. Because help is not always rescue. Sometimes it's resilience, and your resilience is increasing. Your inner capacity is expanding. Your faith is maturing. You don't panic at the first sign of a storm anymore. You breathe. You pause. You speak truth over yourself. That's spiritual growth. That's divine support. That's evidence that the law is working. You are walking proof that help does not always come in flashing signs and visible miracles. Sometimes it comes in quiet, steady peace. And that peace is what turns keys in unseen doors. That peace is what draws provision. That peace is your new superpower. And it isn't based on outcomes. It's based on presence. You feel God now in the silence. You hear Him now in the stillness. You know He's near, not because everything is easy, but because you feel held. You feel anchored. You feel supported. And the world may not understand it. That's okay. Divine help is not designed to make sense to everyone. It's designed to make transformation in you. And that transformation is visible, even when the path is not. That's the loop. You are becoming evidence of the unseen. You are the living sign that God is working. Your smile, your stability, your stillness. They testify. And from that stillness, something else emerges. Opportunities, people, possibilities. That's the second wave of help. Now that your inner ground is steady, the outer world begins to respond. What once felt stuck starts to move. What once felt locked starts to open. And you're no longer chasing. You're attracting. You're no longer striving. You're aligned. That's divine rhythm. That's how God moves, not with force, but with flow. And that flow carries with it confirmation. You say something, and it echoes back to you through someone else. You pray, and the answer arrives disguised in an ordinary moment. You hope, and your hope is mirrored by a stranger's encouragement. That is spiritual alignment. That is divine order. And you realize, He's been here all along. He never left. He never took His hand off you. Even when you couldn't feel it, even when you didn't believe it, God was helping you by holding the path steady while you learned to walk. And now Now you're walking stronger. You're walking taller. You're walking clearer. And every step you take is creating a ripple, not just for you, but for everyone watching. Because people are watching. They're watching your peace, your perseverance, your faith, and they are being moved. Because when you are helped by God, you become a help to others. Your life becomes a message, not a sermon, but a signpost. A living testimony of what happens when the invisible begins to lead the visible. And this is your secondary hook. You're not just being helped for you. You're being helped for others. Your alignment is unlocking alignment in those around you. Your clarity is creating space for others to remember their own. This is divine multiplication. This is how the blessing expands. One soul healed, one soul aligned, one soul awake, and from that one, a wave begins. So don't think your peace is small. Don't think your growth is hidden. It is seen. It is helping. Just as you were helped, now you are helping. And this is your call to actioning. Stay with it. Stay with the peace. Stay with the path. Stay with the signs. Don't rush ahead looking for more evidence. Don't doubt what has already been proven. Help is here. You don't need to go find it. You only need to feel it, to recognize it, to rest in it. And when it feels quiet again, as it will, don't fear the silence. Let it remind you God is always working, not always loudly, not always visibly, but always faithfully. Tire is something sacred about the moment you stop needing to control everything. The moment you release your grip on how things should unfold and instead lean into the unfolding itself. That release, that holy surrender, is not weakness. It is wisdom, and it is one of the clearest signs that God is helping you. When you begin to feel peace where you once felt pressure, when you begin to let go of timelines and step into trust, you have entered the atmosphere of spiritual support. This is where miracles begin. Not because you've begged for them, but because you've become the space where they can land. God helps those who release, not as a reward, but as a response. Because surrender is the language of faith, and faith is the currency of the invisible. That's the loop you must remember. It's not force that moves the hand of God, it's faith. Not panic, but peace. Not effort, but alignment. And as you continue walking in this new rhythm, you'll notice something else. You're not reacting the same way anymore. What used to trigger you no longer shakes you. What used to consume you now simply passes through. This is growth. This is spiritual immunity. And this is the third sign that God is helping you. Internal calm in the face of external chaos. When everyone else is running, and you are rooted. When everything else is shaking, and you are steady. That is not personality. That is presence. Divine presence. God within you, guiding you, calming you, stabilizing you. And that calmness, it's not accidental. It's cultivated. It is the fruit of trust. And trust is not blind. It is built, day by day, choice by choice. And now you are choosing differently. You're no longer choosing fear as your first response. You're no longer clinging to every detail. You're letting things breathe. You're allowing space for grace. That is divine help. You're being helped in the way you think, the way you feel, the way you perceive. You're not being helped to avoid pain. You're being helped to rise above it. That's a connection point we must not miss. God doesn't always remove the fire, but He transforms you in the midst of it, so that you walk through what would have once broken you and come out stronger, softer, clearer. And people will wonder how you're standing. They will ask how you're smiling, and you'll know, it wasn't you. It was grace. It was help. It was God. And that realization brings a new kind of gratitude. A gratitude not just for answered prayers, but for the unanswered ones. For the delays that saved you. For the detours that protected you. For the disappointments that redirected you. That's the fourth sign. Gratitude that appears without proof. You begin to feel thankful even before things change. You begin to say, thank you, without needing the evidence. That is a soul in alignment. That is a spirit that sees the invisible. That is when you begin to move in the realm of miracles. Because miracles do not happen to those who wait in doubt. They happen to those who move in gratitude. Gratitude is not the result of receiving. It is the portal through which receiving flows. And you're walking through that portal now. You are starting to see with new eyes. You are starting to recognize the blessings that were always there. The breath in your lungs, the lessons in your trials, the whispers of love in the middle of your hardest days. And as you recognize, you receive. As you see, you shift. That's the loop again. Awareness births alignment. Alignment activates abundance. And abundance is not always money. Sometimes it's clarity. Sometimes it's peace. Sometimes it's the strength to get up one more time. To try again, to trust again. That's abundance. And it's flowing. Because God is helping you not only to receive, but to recognize what you've already received. You were never without, you were just unaware. And now that awareness is growing. And as it grows, so does your capacity. Capacity to love deeper. Capacity to forgive sooner. Capacity to trust wider. Capacity to believe higher. That's the secondary hook. You're not just being helped to get out of a problem. You're being helped to grow into the person who lives above it. And that is the kind of help that lasts. That is the kind of transformation that sustains. You are not being given a fish. You are being taught how to swim in the ocean of grace. You are not being handed answers. You are being open to wisdom. You are not being rescued from the waves. You are being taught to walk on water. And that is the miracle. That is the message. That is the call to actioning. Don't go back to the old way. Don't return to fear just because the world tells you to. Keep walking in this new flow. Keep resting in the unseen. Keep trusting that the signs are not random. They are revelations. Each one is guiding you deeper, higher, further into alignment with your soul's divine design. God is helping you, not always with noise, not always with neon signs, but always with love. And if you look, really look, you will see it, even now. There's a moment in your journey where things begin to make sense backwards. When you realize that the pain, the pause, the detour, the delay were not random. They were rescue. And though it didn't feel like help at the time, you now see the fingerprints of the divine all over those moments. That's the fourth sign: divine hindsight. The ability to look back at the worst and say, even then, God was helping me. When you can look at what almost broke you and say, but it built me instead. You are no longer guessing. You are knowing. And that knowing is the beginning of wisdom. You see, spiritual help isn't always about fixing something broken. Sometimes, it's about revealing the perfection inside what looked like chaos. That is how God works. Not always by removing the storm, but by revealing the anchor within you. The storm didn't come to drown you. It came to remind you that you could float. And now you're floating. Maybe not always gracefully. Maybe not always with ease. But you're afloat. You're moving. And you're moving with faith. Which means you're no longer at the mercy of appearances. That's the loop you've stepped into. The holy cycle where faith creates form. You don't need to see the full picture to believe in the outcome. You don't need to understand the whole plan to know it's working for your highest good. And that quiet trust is not weakness. It's divine muscle. It's the strength of someone who walks with the unseen, who listens to the whispers, who follows the peace even when it makes no sense. That is a life under divine guidance. That is the evidence that God is helping you. Not by changing what's around you, but by upgrading what's within you. You think you need a better job, a bigger opportunity, a clear answer, but what you really need is what you already have: the power to align, the power to declare, even here, I am helped, I am guided, I am not alone. And when you say it, when you feel it, when you speak it into the silence responds. Doors begin to open, answers begin to rise, the fog begins to lift, because faith moves energy, and energy moves outcomes. The moment you align, the moment you shift from striving to trusting, the world around you begins to echo the truth within you. That's the connection point. The outer always mirrors the inner. And when your inner world becomes a sanctuary of belief, the outer world becomes a reflection of miracles. People notice the change. They say, you seem lighter. You look peaceful. You glow differently. That is God's help made visible. That is the invisible becoming seen. And it wasn't because you tried harder. It was because you surrendered deeper. And in that surrender, you were strengthened. That's the fifth sign: strength in surrender. Not the kind of strength the world talks about. Not grit, not force, not the hustle to prove your worth. But the holy, sacred strength of someone who knows their value is divinely assigned, not human approved. You stopped chasing validation. You stopped begging for permission. You stopped shrinking yourself to fit broken spaces. And that shift, that holy, radiant shift, is how you know you've been helped. God does not just lift your burdens. He lifts your identity. He reminds you who you are: a divine idea, perfectly made, already worthy, already enough. And from that knowing, everything begins to change. Not instantly, but inevitably. That's the loop. Spiritual truth always manifests in physical time. There's a delay between belief and form. But the delay is not denial. It is the space where faith matures. It is the classroom of certainty. And you, dear one, are graduating. You are no longer living from fear. You are no longer trapped in timelines. You are no longer measuring your worth by external validation. That's the sixth sign: freedom. Quiet, powerful freedom. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need the outcome to justify your faith. You are free because your soul knows it is carried. That's what divine help does. It liberates you. Not from life but from limitation, and in that freedom, your energy changes. Your words carry power. Your thoughts carry clarity. Your presence carries peace. That's the secondary hook. You're not just being helped for your own path. You are becoming a lighthouse for others. Your calm is contagious. Your faith is a ripple. Your voice is a vessel, and people are waking up just by being near your frequency. That is what happens when God helps you. He makes you a helper. Not by obligation, but by overflow. And this is your call to action. Remain in the overflow. Do not return to scarcity. Do not bow to fear. Do not retreat into doubt. Stay rooted, stay aligned, stay awake, because this help is not seasonal. It's spiritual. It doesn't leave when the sun goes down. It doesn't vanish when things feel uncertain. It is constant, eternal, ever present. And if you forget, come back to the loop. Come back to the knowing. Come back to this. If you have peace, if you have clarity, if you have the courage to keep going, God is helping you, even now. There is a kind of help that doesn't arrive with fanfare, with flashing lights. A kind of help that doesn't rescue you from the situation, but walks with you through it, making you wiser, softer, and more spiritually aware. And that is the kind of help God sends most often. It is subtle, sacred, and slow enough for your soul to catch up. The fifth sign is one of the most overlooked, yet most powerful: the return of your intuition. When the noise starts to fade, when the voices of fear, doubt, and overthinking begin to quiet, you suddenly hear something different. Not outside you, but within you. A calm direction, a gentle whisper, a knowing. You don't know how you know. You just do. That knowing is not random. It is divine intelligence resurfacing, after layers of fear have been peeled back. That inner voice is the voice of God helping you through yourself. You don't have to chase signs when you are tuned into the one within. And the more you listen, the more guidance you receive. You find yourself saying no to what used to tempt you. You walk away from what once distracted you. You delay the rush and trust the stillness. That's the sign. Not that everything outside has changed, but that you're responding differently. God is helping you through every wise decision you're now making. Not out of desperation, but discernment. Not out of fear of missing out, but faith in divine timing. This shift is holy. This awareness is sacred. And that's the loop. The more you trust the inner voice, the more aligned your outer life becomes. You begin to feel as if life is listening to you, because it is. You're not reacting anymore. You're initiating from a deeper place. And this is how God helps you level up, by tuning your inner compass so precisely that you can walk through darkness and still stay on course. Even when you don't know all the steps, even when others question your path, you walk anyway. That is the miracle. That is the proof. That is the unfolding of something eternal in a very temporary world. And once you realize that, truly realize it, your power returns. Not power as the world defines it, but spiritual authority. You begin to speak differently. You begin to carry yourself differently. You no longer explain your peace. You no longer perform your worth. You know who you are because you know whose you are. That's help. That's God. That's alignment. And once aligned, you'll notice something else. The sixth sign, divine protection. Not just physical protection, but energetic, emotional, spiritual shielding. The conversations you almost entered but were interrupted. The doors you tried to force but were blocked. The opportunities you were certain were right for you. Until they collapsed. You used to mourn these losses. But now you see them as mercy. What didn't happen wasn't failure. It was favor. The protection you didn't recognize in the moment is now your praise report. Because you can see how it all aligned. How the rejection was a redirection. How the closed door was a sacred detour. And this is where the secondary hook arrives. Your eyes begin to open in all directions. You're not only seeing forward in faith, but backward with wisdom and inward with clarity. You're watching every dimension of your life reorganize itself around the truth of divine order. Even your past, once filled with regret or pain, now becomes part of the prophecy. You see how the pain became the portal, how the breakdown became the bridge. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Everything served the growth. And from that place, you start to speak from a different place. You say things like, even this will serve me. You remind others, all things are being worked together for my good. And these are not empty affirmations. These are spiritual declarations. You are not speaking to convince yourself. You are speaking from knowing. And that knowing is magnetic. That knowing becomes your vibration. That knowing becomes your shield. You are becoming a walking embodiment of peace, and people can feel it. They may not understand what's changed, but they will be drawn to your energy, and that energy is the overflow of divine help. You didn't create it. You received it, and now you are the evidence of it. And this is your call to action on remain the evidence. Keep choosing the deeper path. Keep honoring the knowing within. Keep trusting the no's, the pauses, the redirections. Keep blessing the interruptions. Keep giving thanks for what didn't work out. Because it's all working. You are not waiting on help. You are walking in it. You are not hoping for a sign. You are becoming one. You are not lost. You are being led. And if ever you forget, pause and ask yourself, why am I more peaceful now? Why am I less afraid now? Why am I no longer chasing what once consumed me? And the answer will whisper back, because God is helping you. Even here, even now. There's something you begin to notice when God is helping you. Something deeper than a change in circumstance. Something far more powerful than money or miracles. And it is this: you stop feeling alone. You may still be walking through a storm, but suddenly you feel carried. You may still have questions, but suddenly you feel held. You no longer wake up with dread. You no longer walk around bracing for something to go wrong. You feel, somehow, accompanied. That's the sixth sign. The unmistakable sense that you are not doing life alone anymore. And it's not because someone stepped in to save you. It's because God showed you He was already there. In the silence, in the waiting, in the stillness. He was there, and now you've begun to recognize His voice, not as something loud or dramatic, but as something constant and familiar. You feel nudged instead of pushed. You feel guided instead of guessing. You're no longer wondering if you're in the right place. You simply know. And that knowing, that deep soul certainty, is the divine speaking through you. It is the calm that arrives before the answer. It is the trust that shows up before the solution. That's help. That's guidance. That's the evidence of presence. You are being led, not by logic, not by fear, but by peace. And when peace becomes your compass, God becomes your path. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop bargaining with life. You stop questioning your worth. You simply walk, one step at a time, not in fear of what's next, but in confidence that whatever comes, it will be for your highest good. That's the loop again. God's help isn't always revealed in what changes, but in how you walk through what hasn't changed yet. The situation may look the same, but you're different now. And because you're different, the outcome must be, your energy is elevated, your mind is steady, your words are aligned. You're not begging for signs anymore. You're walking as one. That is the greatest sign of divine help. Transformation from within. It cannot be faked. It cannot be rushed. And it cannot be undone. When you start to speak differently, it's because you see differently. And when you see differently, you live differently. You're no longer entertaining drama. You're no longer chasing after people who were never meant to stay. You're no longer explaining your peace to people committed to misunderstanding you. That's divine maturity. That's the inner shift. That's how you know God is building something in you that can't be broken by the world around you. And from that new frequency, your life begins to change without force. You start to attract support, kindness, provision. Not because you hustle, but because you've healed. That's the connection point. Healing is the door through which help flows. The more healed you are, the less blocked you become. And the less blocked you are, the more God can get through. He was always sending the help, but now you're finally open to receive it. You no longer sabotage what's meant for you. You no longer delay your blessings through disbelief. You no longer push away love and call it independence. You are open. You are ready. And because of that, the next season of your life doesn't have to fight to find you. It comes easily. It flows. And not because it's easy, but because you're aligned. That's the secondary hooking. It's not what you do that invites help. It's who you're becoming. You're becoming the version of yourself that miracles can recognize, the version that no longer chases, only attracts, the version that no longer doubts, only expects, the version that no longer panics, only prays. And from that version, your world expands. Not because everything outside has changed, but because your inner world is finally clear. That is help. That is progress. That is divine support in motion. So now, your call to action: trust what you feel. Trust what you know. Trust that the stillness is sacred. Trust that the release was necessary. Trust that you haven't been abandoned. You've been prepared. And when the doubts come, and they will, go back to the truthing. If your heart is calmer, if your mind is clearer, if your soul is stronger, then yes, God is helping you, even now, especially now. And if you've made it this far, if you felt the soft unfolding, the clarity rising like dawn after the long night, then you've already seen the seventh and final sign: the return of your light. The real you. The one beneath the fear. The one beneath the pressure and the past. The one who never truly left, only forgot. The one that God has been guiding back to wholeness through every trial, every pause, every closed door. This is the moment when the help you've been searching for outside begins to bloom from within. You wake up and feel something new. Or perhaps something old, something ancient and eternal that you'd buried under years of doubt and noise. And now it rises. It rises as hope. It rises as confidence. It rises as a quiet voice saying, "You were never alone." This is not the kind of help that shouts. It's the kind that hums. It hums in your bones. It hums in your breath. It hums in your decisions. You stop second-guessing your worth. You stop settling for what doesn't feed your spirit. You stop living as if you're on trial for a life you were born to live freely. That's the proof. The shift back into power, not the world's power, but divine power. The power to trust what you can't see. The power to rest when the world says hustle. The power to walk away when your peace is on the line. That's not weakness. That's guidance. That's divine help showing up as courage, as clarity, as conviction. And from that place, you begin to carry yourself as someone who is helped, not as someone who is desperate, or lost, or behind, but as someone who knows they are kept, and others will notice. They'll say, "You're glowing, you're different, you'll seem free," and you'll smile, because it's not something you can explain. It's something you've become. The helped are not loud. The helped are not frantic. The helped do not prove or panic. The helped radiate, they rest, they receive. Because they've remembered the truth that they were never meant to do it alone. That grace was always waiting. That provision was always near. That the path was always unfolding. They just had to trust the next step. And now you do. You trust the pauses. You trust the detours. You trust the redirections. Because every time life whispered, "Not yet," it was heaven's way of saying, "I've got better." And now you believe it. You believe that God's plan really is greater than your pressure. That divine order is more trustworthy than deadlines. That your story doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Because your help comes from beyond this world. And that's the loop that ties it all together. Help is not just what you receive, it's who you become. A person who carries light into dark places. A person who reflects peace instead of panic. A person who speaks life when others speak fear. A person who holds the vision, even when the visible looks impossible. Because that's what the help do. They don't crumble, they create. They don't run, they root. They don't shrink, they shine. And now, it's your turn. This is your call to actioning. Walk as one who is helped. Speak as one who is helped. Decide as one who is divinely guided. Don't ask, "Will help come?" Ask instead, "How can I respond as someone already helped?" And the answer will rise from within. Gentle, but clear. Stay faithful. Stay thankful. Stay tuned in. Because God doesn't help you for a moment. He helps you for a mission. You are the evidence of unseen help. You are the vessel of answered prayers. You are the proof that healing is real and heaven is near. So hold your head high. Let go of the old story. Let go of the old self. Step forward, not in fear but in fullness. You are helped. You are guided. You are ready. You are already becoming what you once hoped for. So rise, shine, and never forget, even when you can't feel it, even when you don't see it, even when everything goes quiet, God is still helping you. Always. Especially then. And if you've come this far, if you've been walking through these signs and finding pieces of yourself in every one, then listen closely now. Because this final sign is not just something you observe, it is something you embody. The seventh sign that God is helping you is the return of your light. Not a light that came from anyone else. Not a light borrowed or dependent or fragile. But your original light, your divine spark, the truth of who you are before the world tried to dim it. This is not about religion or rules. This is about remembering. Remembering that you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are being shaped. You are being readied. You are being positioned for what was always yours. And the moment you truly believe that, everything shifts. You begin to rise, not because your circumstances have changed, but because your consciousness has. You walk taller, not out of pride, but peace. You speak softer, not out of fear, but presence. You release more, not because you've lost, but because you've outgrown. This is your return. This is your reawakening. And it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's sacred. It's subtle. It's the kind of transformation that happens in the stillness when no one's watching. But when it happens, everything changes. You start to hear yourself again. Not the old voice filled with panic and proving and pressure. But the true voice. The one that's always known what's right. The one that's always whispered, not this. Even when you didn't listen. The one that's now guiding you into something greater. Not because you earned it, but because you aligned with it. That's the key. That's the loop. God's help isn't something you beg for. It's something you receive when you align with the truth of who you are. And the truth is this: you are loved. You are supported. You are guided. Not because you have everything figured out, but because you were never meant to. That was never your role. Your role is to believe, to trust, to say, even here now, I believe there is help for me. And when you say that, when you feel that, when you speak that into the space around you, heaven listens, and help flows in. Not always in the form you expected, but in the form you truly needed. Maybe that help looks like peace today. Maybe it looks like release. Maybe it looks like courage. Maybe it looks like silence. Because silence too is a sign, a holy pause, a divine deep breath before the breakthrough. And even if it's quiet right now, even if it feels like nothing is happening, don't be fooled. Stillness is not absence. It is preparation. It is sacred realignment. It is the space where God strengthens your roots before He shows you the fruit. And that is where you are right now. In the preparation for everything you prayed for. It's not behind you. It's not in someone else's hands. It's here. It's rising. And so are you. Look at how far you've come. Not just what you've achieved, but how you've endured. How you've kept going when no one saw. How you've chosen faith even when fear felt louder. How you've softened instead of hardening. That's help. That's transformation. That's growth. And now you wear that help like armor. Not to defend yourself, but to radiate what you've received. Your energy has changed. Your frequency has lifted. Your spirit has expanded. And now you begin to see how all the delays were really divine design. How the wrong turns were part of the right path. How every breakdown carved the way for a bigger breakthrough. You were not being punished. You were being prepared. You were not being tested. You were being trusted. Trusted to hold this level of clarity, this level of compassion, this level of truth. And now you're ready. Not perfect, but ready. Not certain of every step, but certain of who walks with you. Not immune to doubt, but anchored in peace that surpasses understanding. And that peace, that deep, unshakable peace, is the loudest sign that God is helping you. Because peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of God within them. It is the gentle knowing that says, I may not see the way, but I am still being carried. So breathe. Breathe deeply. Breathe gently. Let the old go. Let the fear melt. Let the trying, the forcing, the striving release from your shoulders. You are not behind. You are right on time. Your story is not delayed. It's unfolding. Your season is not passing. It's blooming. And it's blooming because you've chosen trust over tension. Presence over panic, truth over trauma. That's help. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. And from here, from this holy ground you now stand on, your only job is to keep walking. One step, one breath, one affirmation at a time. Say it now. I am helped. I am guided. I am loved beyond measure. Say it again, even here, even now. I receive divine help. Say it with faith. I don't need to know the how. I trust the who. And that is your call to action. Don't leave this message unchanged. Don't close this door and go back to shrinking. Don't return to the small version of you that thought you had to do everything alone. Step into the real you, the one who knows, the one who remembers, the one who radiates light not because everything is perfect, but because they are aligned with the one who is. That's who you are. That's who the world needs. That's the you God has been building. So shine. Glow. Walk differently. Talk differently, trust differently, because you're not guessing anymore. You're not doubting anymore. You're not chasing anymore. You are becoming. You are aligning. You are receiving. And most of all, you are being helped. Help is not just something you wait for. It's something you become a vessel for. And now, you are that vessel. You are the answered prayer. You are the living proof. So live like it. Speak like it. Believe like it. Move like it. Because you are no longer who you used to be. And you will never again be who you once feared you were. You are free. You are found. You are favored. And you are, beyond all doubt, already helped. Always have been. Always will be.